So today I'm going to be explaining a high pressure oil system on a standard refrigeration rack at a supermarket grocery store chain. So this is a Westermeyer filtered coalescing oil separator that I'm working on right now. And the problem we're having is a lack of oil flow coming out of the oil separator. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you guys how to look for your major issues with these separators and what to look for when you have oil pressure issues. So this oil separator, the way an oil separator works is you have your discharge line goes up into the actual separator, and it's like a 90 right here in the center, right? And the 90 goes up and in, and your oil is going to fall over the 90, and it's going to drain down to the bottom because oil is heavier than refrigerant. And then your discharge gas is going to go up and down your discharge line here, right? So you want your discharge line to feel warm or hot. Now it's the winter time, so it's not going to be nearly as warm as it might be in the summer, right? But you definitely want proper discharge gas, because if you have a lack of discharge pressure, it's going to cause a lack of oil pressure. We had some condenser issues at this store. We had no condenser fan cycling and no holdback valve set. So we got the condenser pressure issue solved. So now we have a constant discharge pressure on this rack, which is good. That's what you want. You also want to make sure that you have proper oil in this separator. We have 2 balls floating, so that is a plentiful amount of oil in this rack. So that's good. Now, your oil feed line. The oil comes off the bottom, and it's going to go right into the top into your filter. You want this line to be warm or hot. Now it's going to go through your filter. If you have oil pressure here, meaning this line is hot, but it's not hot coming out of your filter, change your filter, okay? Then it's going to go into an oil pressure differential valve. Now, there's a screen on the inlet of your valve. Make sure that screen is clean. These screens plug up very often. Also, the purpose of this valve is you want your oil pressure to be roughly 20 psi, 20 pounds above your suction pressure. So make sure that after your valve here, that your oil pressure is 20 pounds roughly above your suction pressure. And the way you check that is gauge up here and then know your suction pressure and just add 20 pounds on top. If it's not, obviously check all of your components first. Check your separator to make sure that your separator filter is clean. Make sure that you're getting proper oil flow out of your filter. If all that's good, check your screen and then set your valve. You shouldn't really be having to set these valves too often unless someone's touching them or messing with them a lot. On this guy, we actually do have a bad oil separator filter. So we're gonna go ahead and change this, and we'll see if we can get pressure down. I'll be explaining how to replace a coalescing oil separator filter. So if you notice, I'm working on a Hill Phoenix rack on the roof, and it's very windy out here. And if you don't have these door holders, right, these hold your doors open, they're rods and they snapped off in high winds and whatever over the years. If you don't have those, I just take the doors off because our oil separator is right there and I'm going to be going in and out. And you don't want to be fighting these doors all day, so just take those right off. That side has the holders on it, so I just have those open. So what you're going to have to do on this, if you don't have a bypass, and on this one we don't, it goes right off of our discharge header in and out to our condenser, right? So we're going to have to valve off all the compressors. Now, most of the time you'll be able to get away with just valving off your discharge lines and your oil, right? I like to valve everything off. I like to valve off the suction, the discharge, and the oil. And the reason why is a lot of the time your discharge lines are going, your service valves for your discharge lines are going to bleed by, right? So I valve everything off to minimize the chance that we're going to have gas bypassing into your discharge header, right? So you're going to valve off your compressors, you're going to valve off your oil line, your feed off the bottom of your separator, and then I valve off anything equalizing to the suction header, okay? And then on your outlet side of your separator, it's going to go out to your condenser, and on this, we're just going to have to valve off our condenser. On our discharge header here, we're going to have 2 ball valves on our discharge header, valve those off, and you want to have everything nice and planned out. All your caps taken off, everything ready to go, so that way when we shut this rack down, we're going to have the most minimal amount of downtime as possible. We don't want this rack down for very long. So I'm going to get everything prepped and ready, and then I'm going to show you guys how we change this. So once you get the top of your oil separator lid off, the filter is going to sit right on this threaded rod, right? And if what you're looking at, that circle where the rod goes down into, that's actually your discharge pipe, and all the oil around it is your oil that's filled in this tank here, the separator, right? So right down where that rod goes is going to be your line. The oil is going to come up and it's going to fall over the sides of that circle, and it's going to just hang around in that tank. Okay, and then the filter, I'll show you guys where we put the filter. So what we're doing here is he's getting the gasket off of the lid off. He's taking a thermostat screwdriver and he's tapping it to get that gasket off. Sometimes they're harder to get off than others, especially if it's stuck on there. Sometimes the heat will stick the gasket right to the lid. You want to get a nice piece going there, and then you can start peeling it off most of the time, unless it breaks. It's very brittle. So we just put our new oil separator filter in. You want to make sure that it's somewhat centered, so you can kind of pull it to the left or to the right. You do not want it stuck to the wall. So we'll get that situated. And you want it all the way down, so make sure you wiggle it so that that filter goes all the way down. And then this top nut right here, this top nut on top of the filter, actually you don't want to tighten that too much. So just make sure that that's just tight enough where it's not going to come off, but don't, you know, send it to the moon with a 1/2 inch or anything. Just hand tighten it with a wrench will work just fine.